Welcome to Masters of CX, episode 8 by ET Brand Equity. In this series, we are engaging with leaders who are differentiating when it comes to customer experience. Today, I am joined by Amanpreet Bajaj, who's leading the business for Airbnb in India, Southeast Asia, Hong Kong, and Taiwan. Welcome, Amanpreet.
Hi, Varun. Thanks for having me.
According to an X Index 2023 report published by the Harris Group, Airbnb was ranked the number one brand when it comes to customer experience. So I think there's a lot to learn from you, Amanpreet, on how you're delivering that superior customer experience. And before we kind of jump in to the questions, I'd love if you could add some color on the India journey of Airbnb in 2023.
Sure. Thanks for the question. And yes, that was a big milestone for us to achieve in terms of the Havas report that you kind of shared. So, I'll just start by saying that at Airbnb, our commitment always is to provide a very unique customer experience. And that commitment is at the heart of everything that we do. And, from a 2023 perspective, also, we had a very healthy year, as you would imagine, right? If I were to just zoom out a little bit, post-pandemic, the travel industry was the most hit. If you look at it, there was an innate need for customers to continue to connect. And I think a lot happened during the pandemic. And as we got out of the pandemic, we saw the rise of a very different kind of a traveler. And when we saw that the needs of this traveler were very different, we had to make sure that we innovate and we upgrade our service and make sure that we listen to the inputs of this new traveler. And I'll kind of go deeper into this as we kind of speak. But it was very important for us to adapt and be able to cater to their needs. And that is what we did. So over the last couple of years or so, we've had almost 200 plus upgrades of our service on Airbnb, including in India. And these upgrades were primarily coming from a lot of listening that we did in terms of understanding the user needs, both as we operate a two-sided marketplace, both on the sides of the host as well as on the guest. And at the heart of it is to make sure that guests on our platform continue to have unique, authentic experiences wherever they go, whether in India or outside of India. So what we found, Varun, was that people had more flexible time on their hand. Work from home gave them a little bit more flexibility in terms of choosing when they would want to travel. In fact, what we saw was that the lines between living, working, and traveling got blurred. And what this meant was that people were now traveling more and they were exploring newer destinations. And while they were traveling, it was not limited primarily to specific weekends or holidays. They were able to travel through the year in multiple occasions. And while they were wanting, and they had this flexibility, the way they were looking for places to go to travel had to change. And this is where, some of the innovations that Airbnb came up with were very, very useful. So one of the key, upgrades that we did was the launch of categories. Now, something that you don't associate with, travel per se. Categories is more product, e-commerce related kind of a user experience. But what we figured out was that maybe people want a new way to search that makes it easy for them to discover millions of homes that they never knew existed in the first place. And at the heart of Airbnb is unique homes and unique experiences that people can book and hosts that can offer these unique homes and experiences. So what we did was we categorized these unique homes into multiple categories. In fact, we launched about 60 plus categories that organize these homes based on the style, based on the location, based on the proximity to a specific activity. For example, if you are a golf enthusiast and you want to stay near a golf course and at times even within a golf course, then we created something category that you could help do that. If you are someone into sustainability and you're looking to stay in an earth house or a mud house or an ecological retreat, you were able to kind of go browse for those homes and kind of find these and discover these new places to stay. And these search results then got organized by categories that were relevant to that destination that you were looking for. So this kind of change made a fundamental shift in the way people discovered new, unique places to kind of go. One thing that a lot of people come up to us and say is that the number one reason they choose Airbnb is to find unique homes, right? So whether it's a tree house, whether it's an A-frame, whether it's a villa with a pool, depending on what you need, you can now easily find it on Airbnb. And the discovery of these unique homes was made easier with the launch of this category. What we also understood were that a large amount of data gets collected on Airbnb's platform. So every minute, if I'm not wrong, about 100 plus 5-star reviews get recorded in terms of people having a good stay wherever they go. And what we wanted to do is we wanted people to be able to find these homes in a very more efficient manner. And so we launched something very recently called Guest Favorites. And this Guest Favorites is basically a collection of 2 million most loved homes on Airbnb. And we use a number of criteria, right? Whether it's based on ratings, reviews, reliability. But if you are good on that particular threshold or on those benchmarks, we categorize you as a guest favorite. And this basically helps, guests identify homes that have been appreciated for the hospitality, for the location, for the overall experience, and they're able to kind of book those in a big way. Apart from that, what we also talked about is, flexibility, right? So what we figured out was that we wanted to create flexibility to be the core of the enhanced browsing and booking experience. So we introduced new ways to search for destinations or homes on Airbnb, flexible dates. So you don't need to put in a specific check-in date or a checkout date. You could just highlight that I'm flexible with my dates in the whole of the month, and we would show you options there. Flexible matching, right? So based on your interests, we would show homes that you would like to visit based on your past history or also what you've been browsing on the platform. And then obviously flexible destinations. And we believe this has helped bring to the forefront not only unique homes and neighborhoods in the first place, but also newer destinations. So during the pandemic and straight coming even in 2023, many new cities and pin codes saw Airbnbs coming up in those destinations. And what it led to was discovery of these destinations by guests. And so a lot of people started to explore newer places in India as well. So domestic tourism got a big boost because of these things as well.
Thank you for really adding color to the journey. 200 innovations is not a small feat.
200 plus innovations over the
200
last
plus
couple of years.
innovations. I want to really touch upon something you brought about that, the travelers want a unique experience. And myself, if I want to travel, the question is that place is too commercialized, which stops me from either going there. But when I look at more niche destinations, then the properties or the ecosystem is not there. According to an Oxford economics report, the efforts of Airbnb has led to INR 72 billion, addition to the economy in these local communities that you've partnered with for the homestays, right? I want to talk to you about how you are working with these local communities beyond the platform, to kind of create that ecosystem for travelers, because the guests who go there, they also have the spending power to kind of add to that, and then that leads to a virtuous cycle of
Yeah,
building that ecosystem there.
you're very right, right? So at Airbnb, we stay very focused on what makes our platform special. And the secret sauce for us is our host community. And it's not just the community, it's their ability to deliver unique experiences, as you rightly said, to our guests. And this is not limited only to the kind of accommodation that they provide or the home they provide. It's the overall experience when people come into the community. How do they bring them into their communities, make them immerse in the local culture? And that experience makes it much more magical, right? And Airbnb, again, is made possible by our hosts, and we continue to invest in our host community, especially in India as well. So, a couple of things again. What happened post the pandemic was there was this rise of a new conscious and responsible traveler. So we did multiple surveys to understand what do travelers now want. And one thing was very clear. A large percentage of travelers, and this primarily is led by millennials and Gen Z, because that's the cohort of demographic that is traveling a lot more. It was very clear that the choices that they make in terms of the choice of accommodation, the place to go, the communities they visit, they keep the impact on the community that that choice would make as a key criteria before making that choice. And that impact is not just related to the economic impact in terms of the money that the host would earn or the community would kind of experience. It's also in terms of the social causes that basically maybe a community supports. So for example, if there are sustainable practices in a community, say for example, organic farming, a lot of people relate to it and they want to go and stay and contribute positively to that piece. And so when people come to Airbnb for travel, what they're looking for is connection. And connection can be multiple ways, with the host, with the community as well, right? And they do experience a very deeper connection to the communities they visit and the people who live there. We have taken a number of initiatives, to your point, in terms of how we work with these communities. For example, we have signed MOUs with various state governments in India. And one of the key tenets of the MOUs that we have signed is to create capacity building, so create more hosts in underserved areas. And we provide hospitality training, we share global best practices, and we get them onto our global platform so that they are able to then showcase their offering to a global audience, given that we are present in over 220 plus countries. So that makes our platform very unique in terms of the access that these communities can get to. And what we have done is, we have done this, for example, very recently in Goa, where we conduct these workshops and we help people understand the benefits of the platform and come on Airbnb. What we also do this on the platform, make sure these underserved communities and underserved areas get more highlighted. And so whether it is through social media, whether it is through content, whether it is on the platform, we highlight these unique places, and that's what we do. In fact, last year, we also signed a memorandum of understanding with Incredible India, right? The Ministry of Tourism at a federal level, at a central level. And the idea again was to showcase India's rich heritage to the world. And that's what we have done. And so there are unique properties, unique communities that are on the platform. And we use these MOUs, in making sure that we highlight these to the rest of the world. What we have also seen is when people come and stay on Airbnbs within these neighborhoods and communities, they tend to stay longer than they would have stayed if they were staying in a traditional form of hospitality in a traditional vacation hotspot. And when they stay longer, they tend to spend more. And so what happens is when they come and stay in a local neighborhood, they go and shop at a local grocer store. They go and shop at a local artisan store and buy the local art and craft. That gets a boost. People who are in that area get more livelihood opportunities. For example, we signed a partnership, or we've been in partnership with a self-help group called Seva in Gujarat, where the idea was to train a cohort of, rural women and bringing their rural homes on the Airbnb platform. And we have done this very successfully over the last few years. And when people go and visit these places in rural Gujarat now, they see an entire micro economy that has formed around it. So the youth there is now, for example, taken up the job of driving, and they take the guests around the city so that they can also see places. And so overall community development and micro economy development is facilitated by activities on Airbnb. So you rightly said, some of the interesting findings of the Oxford Economics reports were that we supported over 85,000 jobs directly and indirectly, and contributed over USD 920 million to India's GDP in the period from like April 22 to March 2023, somewhat, kind of overlapping. But this basically also meant that India was one of APAC's largest tourism economies in 2022. And it was very important because the tourism spending almost recovered to pre-COVID levels. And I think that is a very healthy sign when guests are coming and spending within communities. And so overall, what we saw is when guests were spending more outside of the accommodation, about 50% of the money was going into the local communities, restaurants, retail, shopping, etc. So I think that was very good from an overall development of our tourism ecosystem.
Fantastic. And you spoke about, of course, an important part of your customer experience is giving that unique experience to the guest.
Yes.
Travel being a high consideration category, there are also other considerations. The 200 plus innovations that you've done. If you would have to broadly categorize which aspect of the guest experience that they were looking to enhance, right?
Sure.
What apart from creating that choice, optionality, and the unique destination part, what are the other areas which Indian travelers really care about when it comes to the customer experience?
Sure, Varun. I think I'm getting a little nostalgic, So Airbnb has been focused on creating the best user experience through the years, right? And so most of the innovations that I talked about have been in the recent past, but let me just zoom out a little bit and share the process with which we kind of do this at times. So, very early in Airbnb's journey in 2012, 13, 14, 15, what we did was we kind of storyboarded the entire experience in terms of the key touch points that a guest and host may have through the entire journey. So it could be looking for a place on the platform, finding the right place, booking it, then the time of check-in, the engagement, the interaction with the host, their stay, the checkout, and then finally the review and a rating system that happens on the platform. And we storyboarded this entire experience to understand what are the various interfaces that guests and hosts may face. And we did this both at a guest level and at the host level, right? So from the perspective of someone checking in and from the perspective of someone inviting and getting people into their homes. This really enabled us to understand specific nuances in terms of what people are looking for. And, there is this very famous, example that our founder and CEO, Brian Chesky, has shared multiple times, that Airbnb wanted to create a 10-star experience, right? And the idea, or an 11-star experience. And the idea was to kind of continue to iterate and continue to think how to better a particular experience, whether it is at a specific point. For example, let's say check-in. So when people check in, it could, vary. That entire experience when people go check in into their Airbnb could vary from a 4-star experience to something really unique, something very magical. And he kind of explained in that video how people, when everything goes as per what they were expecting, they rate it as a 5-star experience, right? And that's our usual tendency to say, nothing went wrong, this was a great check-in, and okay, I'll give it a 5-star experience. But then they started to think, what could a 6-star experience look like? So for example, when you check in into a place, the host welcomes you, opens the door, but then also when you check in, there is a handwritten note from the host on the desk. There is a bottle of wine or favorite juices that you want, and maybe recommendations on what to do in the evening based on what you've kind of shared with him earlier. And that is kind of a wow experience, and you think, wow, this is great. But what could be a 7-star experience, right? And so that experience could be where you go and you get picked up from the airport by the host because they are there personally to kind of welcome you. And then they take you to the home. You enter the home. There is, based on your interaction with the host, they know that maybe you like cricket. And so there is a cricket kit available for you to kind of use in the evening. They also book you a table at the favorite or the most famous restaurant in that neighborhood. So that kind of makes it a 7-star experience. And so, you know the process. How can you create a wow experience iteration after iteration? And something as unique would be that, there are many people wanting to kind of celebrate your check-in, and they're ready to welcome you, and you are treated like a celebrity when you check in. That could be the extreme end of that experience. But how do you get to that process where you go to the end and then you reverse engineer in terms of making things that make an experience wow happen? And I think that has been our philosophy, to kind of storyboard every engagement. In fact, we revisited this and we revamped this entire process very recently, where we again storyboarded the existing guest journey, the existing host journey, and then looked at various interfaces on our platform, plus what are the policies that are governing some of these engagements, because now we are a large company, so there are policies that people have to follow, and what are the policies related to each of these touch points. And what we also did in addition was to analyze millions of conversations that we've had with our customers, our guests, and our hosts, and figure out what are some of the pain points, what are some of the areas that we can improve at each of these interfaces. And I think that is the reason that we've been able to relentlessly innovate and come up with solutions that cater to some of these needs. So specifically talking about India, right? So what we've seen is that over the years, Indians love to travel in groups. And so we've made it easier for them to kind of, through the categories, for example, figure out spaces that are able to accommodate a larger group. And typically when people travel in large groups, that could be an extended family or groups of friends traveling together, they want specific amenities, like, for example, pools or access to a gym or access to a large lawn or a playing facility, etc. So we've been able to categorize these specifically for our Indian guests, and people can now look for these specific places specifically from the categories. What we've also done is, as a platform, you want to understand what the experience of previous users has been. And so foundation to the Airbnb system is the reviews and rating system. So after every booking, the guest reviews the host reviews the guest, and over a period of time, they form a reputation on the platform. And if you are, say, for example, a new guest on our platform, you would want to go and read what other people have had from an experience perspective with this host or at that home. And so we also revamped the entire review and rating page in terms of, you could find what have been some of the best reviews, how people have experienced this from your country, etc. And so we continue to look at all aspects of the journey and then kind of innovate. And this is from the guest perspective. What we've also done on the host side is making it easier for people like you and me to share our homes on an everyday basis, right? Because that the everyday people sharing homes for a small period of time, that's the heart and soul of Airbnb. So what can we do to create an experience for them that it's easy for them to load? So we use a lot of machine learning. We use AI, for example. We categorize the photos uploaded by our host into like room tours. So we are able to identify what is the photograph from is it a kitchen, is it the facade of the house, etc. And we use data models to kind of make it easy for them to categorize, so that the overall experience both at a guest and a host end are more seamless. And there are multiple other things that we've kind of done, to make this more meaningful at both levels and make it easier for people to have a great experience.
Great. The thing about customer experience is that it's a continuous journey. As you said, you have to keep iterating to deliver those wow moments. Would just love to know, to wrap this up, is how you are planning to stay consistent as you scale,
Yeah.
as more users come on the platform from all corners of the country, and as well, what are some of your bets to kind of future proof the customer experience that you already have? If you could share some color.
Well, as you would have seen, right, Varun, we have been continuously innovating. And at the heart of that need to innovate and bring upgrades to our service on our platform is basically a very, very fundamental thing. We put a lot of time in understanding what our users need. And whether it's like listening sessions, whether it's like community meetups, feedback from messages that we receive from our guests and hosts, all of this is a very, very important exercise for us to ensure that we are relevant and we adapt to the changing needs of the consumer, right? I'll give you one more example, and maybe going back to the pandemic times. When people could not travel, when homes were shut, airports were shut, planes were grounded, the desire for people to connect and also to earn money, right? Because a lot of people earn their secondary incomes and at times primary income through a platform like ours. That need was still there. And so we did multiple listening sessions with our host community and our guest community, and something was very clear. They want to connect, and if possible, they want to continue to earn money. But how do you do this when people can't even travel and can't check in or check out, right? And that's when we figured out, based on these inputs, that we needed to create something called online experiences as a product on our platform. So within 10 days, our teams came into action, and they created and launched this category called online experiences, where you could be sitting in your home in Delhi, Gurgaon, wherever, but experience something that a host, whether it's a passion, whether it's information, whether it is some kind of a concert that is happening in another part of the world, right? And that category grew for us multifold within weeks. And I think that was a great example of listening to what the consumer needs, adapting to it very fast, and being able to create a solution that kind of scales. And so we continue to make sure that, whatever is required at our customers' end, we take into account and kind of innovate and continue to gather feedback and come up with these upgrades. In fact, we have a very robust internal system that is kind of taking these inputs, and we have a company roadmap which kind of deals with these upgrades twice in a year. So we have a summer release and a winter release where we launch these upgrades based on the user's learning. So there are a number of things that are in store and pipeline that are going to get launched primarily based on these user learnings. But again, fundamentally, what we do is we want to make sure that the foundation is strong. So we have a very robust rating system, because at the heart of Airbnb is trust. And it's very important that when new users come onto the platform, nobody's a stranger on the platform. So whether it is a very robust rating system, a 24/7 customer support, some of these things are very important to continue to build trust for new users. What we also have is a very secure payment system. So when guests and hosts interact on our platform, Airbnb acts as an intermediary, and the money for the guest is safe with us till the time they have a positive experience and they check out. And if there is no problem with their experience, and the money is then provided to the host. So that secure payment system also adds a layer of trust as we kind of scale. Apart from that, we have also innovated in terms of a number of host policies around host guarantees, so that people have peace of mind when they put their home on the platform. And so we continue to evolve our product, our service, but we also continue to evolve our policies that make it easier for people to kind of host. Like when people need more flexibility, they also need flexible cancellation policies, because things can change in terms of their decision. So we have continuously evolved not just our platform, but also our policies. So I think overall, in conclusion, what I would say is that Airbnb's commitment to customer satisfaction is at the core, and it is exemplified through a very robust framework of features, resources, policies, etc. And by combining a transparent rating system, dedicated customer support, and all the upgrades and innovations that we are bringing onto the platform, we want to make sure that both guests and hosts continue to have positive, secure, enjoyable, unique experiences as they kind of travel and they travel more.
Fantastic. Thank you, Amanpreet, for this real insight onto how Airbnb is continuously building it, even though the scale of what you're doing is massive, the number of innovations that you're rolling out. But I think the takeaway is really that it's all rooted in the customer insight, what
Yes,
they are asking
totally.
for, right? And you've implemented it both at the platform level, at the policy level, at the process level, culture level. And that's what I think the real takeaway is from this conversation. Thank you so much for joining us for this
Thank
episode.
you.